Heads podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Spire would be a good place for me if I wanted to do track and basketball as opposed to just one sport. I started talking with some of the admissions people about doing two sports, and they were super open to it. The coaches were super open to it. And honestly, it just felt like the right move.
Annie McDonald is a dual sport athlete at Spire Academy in Geneva, Ohio, where she competes in both track and field and basketball. Annie grew up in Santa Barbera, California, playing a variety of sports before focusing on basketball and track. McDonald has competed in the Junior Olympics twice in the Javelin, Discus, and Shot Put. This past summer, she was selected to play on a basketball team that traveled through Europe. Joining Annie on this episode are two of her coaches at Spire, Krista Phillips, girls basketball head coach, and Michael Larkin, her throwing coach for track and field. Hey, Hoopheads, I wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Visit drdishbasketball.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Joe Burke, head men's basketball coach at Skidmore College, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its play bank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Grab a notebook and pen before you listen to this episode with dual sport athlete Annie McDonald and her coaches Krista Phillips and Michael Larkin from Spire Academy. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight, but I am pleased to be joined tonight by three guests. The star attraction here, Annie McDonald, two-sport athlete at Spire Academy in Geneva, Ohio. Annie's a basketball player as well as track and field, as well as some weightlifting in your past, as I understand. So we're going to dive into all of those things. And then we are also joined by coaches Michael Larkin and Krista Phillips. And we're going to talk to Michael and Krista a little bit later on. We're going to start the conversation here with Annie. So first of all, Annie, welcome to the Hoopheads Pod. Excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start by going back to when you're a kid, not that you're not still a kid, but when you were much younger. Tell me how you got into sports, athletics. Who was the driving force behind getting you involved in sports?
I would definitely say my parents. I mean, I always was interested in sports, but I probably would have quit somewhere along the line if it weren't for my parents. Me and my sister are pretty close in age. She's just about 2 years older than me, so we were always doing sports together. We pretty much tried every sport growing up, and then eventually narrowed it down to our favorites. But yeah, I would definitely say our parents got us into sports from a very young age.
What was the sport that you played when you were younger that you liked the least?
Ooh, probably soccer. Yeah, soccer.
No offense to soccer coaches out there, but I always feel like a sport where you can't use your hands. I'm not sure I'm right there with you. And I didn't play a lot of soccer when I was a kid, but if you can't use your hands, I'm just not sure that that's a sport that I want to spend a lot of time on. So
wasn't my sport.
I completely understand. So tell me how basketball and track and field sort of moved to the top of the list for you. And as you started to get more serious about those, kind of what you did to continue to improve as both a track athlete and a basketball player.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like track was always like the heart of it all. Like there was never any question about whether or not track was going to be in the picture. Like I always knew track would be like there. And it was always like, it came down to track, basketball, and volleyball. Those were my sports. And I always kind of thought it would be volleyball. I don't know why, but I realized that I just love basketball more. And so it was sophomore year when I quit volleyball and just focused on track and basketball. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.
So tell me about, let's start with the track side of it, and then we'll jump to basketball. So as you're getting more involved in track as a younger person, what does it look like in terms of figuring out what events you're going to do? And did you try everything within track? How do you end up with the events that you end up with?
I definitely tried everything. I think like when you're young doing track, they really like put you in everything. You know, you don't really have like maybe you're good, you're better at one event, but like you're really forced to do all the events. So yeah, I tried everything except for pole vault. But yeah, I guess throwing was always just what I was best at. I always did running and jumping on the side. I ended up getting injured long jumping, so that was the end of my running and jumping career. But yeah, from a young age, like I just started out doing all the events. I kind of always thought I would be like a heptathlete or a pentathlete or something, but throwing ended up being what I was best at and what I liked the most.
Well, when you first pick up the javelin, or you first pick up the shot, is it something that just immediately came natural? Obviously, there's a ton of technique that you have to develop in order to get to be able to reach your potential. But when you first pick those up, I think for most kids, I'm guessing that those are pretty unnatural things to be able to do, in terms of most kids aren't just in their everyday life throwing something that looks like a javelin or picking up a heavy shot. So did you kind of take to it naturally? And then obviously over the course of time, you perfect your technique, but did it come easy to you when you first picked those things up?
Yes, it came easy to me. And especially because I was so young, like I was so young, I was able to really like get a feel for it early. But also like it took a lot of hard work because it's so technical. It took a lot of time and patience. Like my dad, he built me and my sister like a shot put ring in the backyard, and we'd be out there for hours and hours just like practicing. So I would say yes, it came naturally, but it really took a lot to like get to where I am now.
Did Dad have any background in the javelin or the shot? Did he have any technical expertise that he could share with you, or was he just bringing enthusiasm?
A little of both. He threw in high school, and he became kind of obsessed with it when me and my sister started doing it. So he learned, through videos and stuff like that. But yeah, he was always there. He was always our biggest fan and biggest critic.
I think that's a role many parents play. There's no question about that. All right, let's flip over to the basketball side of it. Tell me a little bit about your first experiences with basketball. At what age did you start playing, and just how'd you get into the game?
I started when I was 5, doing like YMCA basketball. And it's just a fun sport. Like it's always been so fun for me. I really feel like it really, I'm able to be, competitive and physical, and that's really fun about it. So I think that's what really drew me to it at such a young age. And then when I was in, I think like 7th grade, I joined this club team, and that's where I met like all my best friends. It was just like such a family. So that team is really what solidified my love for basketball. And I really basketball is like the human condition, and I think that's why I love it so much. I'm really passionate about humanity, and there's nothing quite like a team sport like basketball.
All right, so tell me how. I love that comment. I'm going to recommend a book to you in just a second, but tell me about the humanity piece of it. How does basketball and your participation in it, how does that represent humanity? Because I think you're 100% right. Obviously, there's a lot of different aspects of the game that you can relate to the real world. Just tell me your perspective, then I'm going to share the title of the book that I think you should read.
Mm-hmm. I think just like being such a team sport, like you win together, you lose together, you like you struggle at practice together, and then you laugh about it later together. And even just like sometimes it can be pretty intense, but at the end of the day, like you're a family and you're going to get through it together. And I think that you get so much closer with people when you go through hard things together. And so even when we're like dying at practice, running or whatever it is, like at the end of the day, like I'm just grateful to be there having that human experience with my teammates.
Absolutely. Tell me your favorite memory of playing with that travel team that you talked about. Because I know I've had 2 daughters that have played travel basketball, and I was the coach for both of those teams. And I know both of my daughters would say that just the memories that they have of playing with those teammates on a travel team, where obviously you're going on trips and you're going and staying in hotels and you get a chance to play. And so just tell me, what's your favorite memory of playing with your travel teams?
Let me think. This is a funny story. Once we were at a tournament in LA and we all went to Target one night and we were playing hide and seek. We were playing hide and seek in Target, and my best friend Sonia is on that team, and she is not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so we were playing hide and seek, and she hid inside of like the toilet paper like shelf, and someone, like some random old guy who wasn't one of us, like moved one of the rolls of toilet paper to like reveal Sonia. And she didn't know what to do. And we still joke about that. And it was like 6 years ago.
That's funny. That is a good one. My son, one time they were at a tournament and I was not present for this. I was on the trip, but I was not present for it. But him and some teammates grabbed the little carts that you can drive around in, the motorized carts that you can drive like in Walmart that look like little bikes. And they were racing around the parking lot going like 2 miles an hour, having like a mini Indy 500 in the parking lot. So there's always some hijinks that go on travel basketball tournaments. So we talked a little bit about sort of how you went about practicing and improving as a track athlete. Tell me a little bit about your practice routine back home from a basketball perspective. How did you work on your game as a basketball player?
The coach of that same travel team, over quarantine, we couldn't really do group workouts because we had to, social distance. So during quarantine, I started individual training with him. And I think that's where I really got most of my skills, was from like getting such personalized workouts. And I really had nothing better to do over quarantine. So like I was practicing a lot and training. So I think that's where I got most of my skill. I definitely owe a lot to that coach. And then just over time, just reps on reps, like, I think I definitely owe it all to that club team though, because, it was year round. So I really was able to not get rusty during, the off season. Yeah.
All right, so I got to give you my book recommendation before I forget. So there's a book. It's by David Hollander, who is a professor at New York University, and he wrote a book called How Basketball Can Save the World. And he has 13 principles of the game of basketball that all relate to current events and things in the world. So it's a great, great book. If you love basketball and you love just thinking about how basketball could impact greater society, it's just a super, super interesting book. I think anyone who likes basketball would really love it. When I heard you say basketball is like humanity, it touched a nerve with me, because my episode that I did with Dave Hollander about his book was probably one of my favorite episodes ever, because he and I kind of got to dive into some things, not just about basketball, but how basketball in so many ways for a lot of us, it is, I can never give back to basketball what basketball has given me. And so that book is one that had a big impact on me. So I hope you get a chance to at least take a look at it because it's a very, very, very good book, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
There we go. Perfect. All right. So tell me about the workouts that you would do both with your trainer when you're working by yourself. What types of things did you like to work on? Maybe describe your game for the people who are out there listening. What kind of player are you? And then what kind of things did you like to work on in your workouts when you talk about, developing your skills? What were some of the things that you were working on back then?
So when I was younger, I was kind of like bigger and taller than everyone. So I was a post player, up until high school. So I worked on a lot of post moves, a lot of, post moves and stuff. And I didn't really start, working on more of like my outside game until I got to high school. So honestly, I think I benefited from that because I have like experience playing the post. Not that I think I ever will again, but I still have that, and I have experience playing the guard. So I'm glad that I have, a diverse background.
Now you take those little guards down into the post and just post them up. That's what you got to do, right?
Yeah. They'll never see it coming.
All right. Tell me about the decision to go to Spire. And for those people who aren't aware, if you haven't read the bio, Annie's from California. So how does that decision come about? How do you find out about Spire? Do you come out and visit? Obviously, I'm assuming at some point you have a discussion with Krista and some of the other coaches on staff at Spire. Just tell me about the decision-making process to leave home and travel all the way across the country to come to Geneva and be a student athlete at Spire.
So honestly, my family has been kind of moving around for the past 3 years. So I never really felt like I was going to be, like leaving home necessarily. So that part of it wasn't really a concern for me. But I found out about Spire. My older sister went to a track camp here. And at the time, like she was already committed to going to IMG for her senior year. But she thought that Spire would be a good place for me because it's smaller and it's more they would be more it would be a better place for me if I wanted to do track and basketball as opposed to just one sport. So I started talking with some of the like admissions people about doing 2 sports, and they were super open to it. The coaches were super open to it. And honestly, it just felt like the right move.
So tell me a little bit about your day-to-day and what that looks like in terms of just your participation in both sports, and obviously when one's in season versus the other, and how do you try to balance your athletic responsibilities with your academic responsibilities there at Spire?
So it's a little tricky because each sport has a set schedule. So I have like the basketball schedule. So it doesn't necessarily align with the track schedule. So every day I go to my 3 classes and basketball practice and then lift with the basketball team. But on Tuesdays and Fridays, I have a study hall when track has track practice. So I use that study hall to go to track practice. So currently I'm only getting 2 track practices a week, but I think that's okay for now. It's only preseason and there's only a few other throwers on the team. So I still get a lot of reps, a lot of coaching. So I think it's working out pretty well.
All right. Tell me about the basketball experience to this point with Coach Phillips and what you like about it. And has it been what you anticipated that it would be coming into it? What's been the positive aspects of just being a part of the basketball program?
It's been great. It's such a tight-knit group of people, and we spend so much time together. We're getting really close. I think also we've really turned a corner in the past couple weeks, and we're really starting to find our flow. And I've seen a lot of improvement individually and in the team, which is rewarding. So I think it's been so fun, honestly.
Tell me about making friends and bonding with your teammates, because obviously at a place like Spire, it's not like going to your local high school down the road where there's a bunch of people that have grown up together that know each other. People are coming in from different parts of the
Mhm.
country and building a team together. But yet a lot of times you come in and maybe you don't know anyone at all, or maybe you just know one or two people. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got to put together this team and bond and make friends. Tell me what that process has looked like for you and for the team.
Um, I mean, we all pretty much clicked right away. I don't think that was hard. I do think we struggled at the beginning playing together for the first time, figuring out everyone's strengths and weaknesses and playing to our advantages. I do think that was a struggle, but I think we're starting to get to the point where, we're all kind of being a cohesive unit. And I think that's part of that's one of the coolest things, that everyone's from all over. Everyone has a different style of playing, and you can put that together and it can be really, really cool.
Yeah, to be able to have everybody meld together, I think it's always one of the things that, going back to the basketball is humanity comment, right? A basketball team is such an interesting dynamic when you talk about, again, it functions best, right? When everybody knows
Right.
their role and plays together and shares the ball. And yet we all know that anybody who's played basketball, that it's easy within that team concept for people to be selfish and to not necessarily always follow that team dynamic that makes basketball so special. And so it's awesome to hear that you feel like, again, not just from a basketball standpoint, but it sounds like from a friendship standpoint as well, that you've been able to really navigate that and make it work for you. How about on the track side? How's it been? Because obviously, as you said, you're not full-time track right now. You're just kind of a part-time track athlete here during basketball season. So what's it been like on the track side, sort of with that same idea of making friends and bonding? Obviously, the track dynamic of you as a thrower is slightly different from trying to fit in and make a basketball team cohesive, but just what's it been like on the track side of it?
The track team, it's such a supportive group of people. Even I think I was a little nervous about that, only being a part-time for now. I was kind of nervous about, not feeling like really part of the team, but they are so welcoming, so supportive. And we only really have 4 throwers, including me. And it's honestly like, it doesn't even feel like we're any smaller than, a different throws team, maybe, because it's so supportive. And I think that's one of my favorite thing about track, is that even though you're technically competing against your teammates, it never feels that way. It always feels like, even if it means they're beating me, like, I'm happy to see my teammates succeed,
That's awesome to be able to have that supportive environment, right? The kind of environment that you want to provide for your teammates is the same one that I'm sure that, we all wish that our teammates would provide for us, especially when you're talking about an individual sport like track and field and those throwing events, right? And so it's, again, there's a team element, but yet when you go out there and you're throwing, it's just you. Your performance is your performance, and your teammates' performance doesn't affect you in the same way that it does on the basketball floor.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you about your goals, your aspirations as an athlete. Obviously, part of coming out to Spire was to be able to put yourself in the best possible environment to maximize yourself as a person, as an athlete, as a student. So when you look ahead into your future, what are your goals? What are you hoping to accomplish in terms of going to school, and eventually, again, as you continue to mature as an athlete, what's the ultimate goal here?
That's a tough question. I think that's what I'm trying to figure out throughout this year. I definitely, as of right now, I'm not ready to give up track or basketball. So I would say my goal is to find a place where I can do both, to the best of my ability. Yeah, I just want to keep all my doors open, see what happens, see how these seasons go. But yeah, I'm definitely not ready to give either of them up. So I guess I would say my goal is to just have a fulfilling career in both of them, and see where it takes me.
It's awesome that you've continued to be able to pursue 2 sports, because I know that it's a freaking conversation that when we talk to coaches on here, Annie, about the challenges of being a 2-sport or a 3-sport athlete, which for an old guy like me, back in the day, there were many more people that were able to participate in multiple sports simply because sports weren't year-round necessarily in the same way that they are today. And so many kids sort of find that to be just challenging in terms of the things that you're talking about, where I'm in basketball season, I've got to go to track practice, and I've got to take care of my academics, and I've got to do all these things. Or maybe they're just not skilled enough in one sport or the other. And so eventually people end up having to choose one. And in a lot of ways, it always feels sad to me. So I give you a lot of credit for continuing to want to do both sports. And I can, again, see in your face as you talk about each one, just how much fun each one of them is for you. And clearly in slightly different ways, but when you're talking, I can hear in your voice how much you love each one of those. Let me ask you a little bit about the academic side of things. So I know that this is a question that probably people ask you all the time, but what do you want to do when you grow up? What's your goals as far as when you see yourself as an adult? What do you think you might study when you go to college? What do you think you might want to what do you think you might want to be, and where do you want to end up?
I want to study marine biology. I've always loved the ocean, animals, the environment. Yeah, that's what I want to study, and I want to go into something in that field after college.
Very cool. That's awesome. That is very, very cool. So again, I think what you've been able to do and what you're continuing to do there at Spire is something that not a lot of kids get an opportunity to be able to experience, to play 2 sports and play them at as high of a level as you've proven yourself capable of doing. And it's a credit to you. And it's also, again, a credit to your coaches. I think that you have to have a cooperative coaching staff and a cooperative environment to make the accommodations that are necessary to be able to allow you to compete in 2 things that you obviously love very, very much. So Annie, I really want to thank you for taking the time tonight to jump on here and talk with us. Hopefully you'll go out and pick up a copy of How Basketball Can Save the World and read that and do a book report for me or something, and just let me know if you'd like the book. So again, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a very busy young woman, so I want you to be able to get some rest and be ready for practice tomorrow. And we're going to chat a little bit with your coaches. Okay, Annie?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Coaches, Game Changer is making your game film more valuable than ever. New this season to Game Changer, Film Room allows team staff to analyze full game videos, add comments to specific moments, and quickly share feedback with other coaches, team members, or families. The #1 youth sports app automatically skips downtime in the game film, condensing event video into active play so you can focus on the moments that matter. The best part? It's completely free for coaches. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android and take your coaching to the next level with Film Room on Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect.
All right, Krista and Michael, we'll welcome you guys back in. And I guess I'll just let each of you, Krista, maybe you go first, to sort of explain your role with Annie, and then we'll let Michael do the same, and then we'll talk about some of her experiences there at Spire with you guys. So Krista, go ahead first.
Absolutely. So I took over as head coach in October of last year. But previous to that, I met Annie in the summer. She came with her mom on a visit to Spire, and I got a chance to sit down and talk with them while they were here. She was, in her full knee brace, had just had ACL surgery. Her and her mom were like stopping to sell the family car on the way to the airport and move to Costa Rica. So, has lived an interesting life in that regards, but had the opportunity to obviously meet with her, chat with her about being a dual sport athlete. We talked really openly about the challenges that would come with that. Being as the schedule at Spire is pretty rigorous, and she just, the whole time enthusiastic. You've seen her natural, she's so naturally charismatic, just like the most wonderful young woman. And we were just thrilled to be able to, provide her this opportunity.
Just didn't know about her prior to her coming. She sort of found it on her own. You guys weren't actively recruiting her or know anything about her. She just kind of showed up and right on your doorstep.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. All right, Michael, let me know a little bit about your role. Talk to me about your work with Annie.
Yeah, so this is my first year with Spire. I spent almost a decade at the collegiate level beforehand. And I've been lucky to work with dual sport athletes my whole career. It's not something that I personally shy away from. I really see it as like only a benefit to them, right? Just the better athlete you are, the better athlete you are. So you can, move a little bit more fluidly between those sports, and the things that you pick up as an athlete, you can just translate better to the court or onto the field. With her being in like preseason right now, she came out, that first week that I was on campus working with the throwers, and it's very clear when someone shows up and has a deep background of really what I would consider probably her off event, right? Our first practice was shot put, and she's really, excelled in the javelin, excelled in, and I mean, since coming here, excelled in like the weight and the hammer. So first day, not knowing anybody, really not knowing me, and just picking up a shot put, responds super quickly to instruction, blended in with the group immediately. I try to use each of them as like teaching models for each other. And there's just so much in her like fluidity and her athleticism that obviously comes from basketball that I can use as an example. And I can always just like point to, all right, say, look, like I didn't like these sorts of things, but the tempo and the rhythm of her throw is just beautiful. Just if you guys can do what she's doing, you're going to have a lot more success. And it's cool because then I see them start coaching each other, as they're waiting or they're picking up on things. And that's something that she does really quickly. She, as you saw today, is super charismatic, talks with all of the throwers, talks with the jumpers, sprinters. Everybody knows who she is already, even though it's only been a couple months. And it's just one of those things is the more you can make an individual sport like a team sport, like a basketball, the better. And she really brings that energy as well as the talent in the throws.
So from a technique standpoint, as a thrower, does that, how much of that credit, I don't know how well you know her background in terms of how she's been coached and who she's been coached by, but she obviously mentioned her dad and the amount of time that he spent with her and diving into it. So do you feel like a lot of that in terms of technique is just that she honed with her dad, or what's her background like in terms of who was coaching her in those events back before she got to Spire?
She's obviously got a great base in terms of like an understanding of the event and what it comes down to when you start any event, when you start anything. You want to get from, really choppy movements to really fluid movements, right? Nobody pauses taking a free throw, right? But when you see a seventh grader shoot their first hoop, it doesn't look good. And then it gets absolutely better and better. And that's really where she's at. She's very fluid. I'm sure, and I credit that to her coaches, both in the past track as well as her past other sports, especially with like basketball now. Like the technical aspects, playing basketball doesn't make you a better shot putter, and being a shot putter or a jav thrower doesn't make you a better basketball player. But it makes you a better athlete, which is a linear progression. They're the same thing, right? We're trying to make a better athlete. The technique side of it comes that I have my way of coaching it. Wherever she goes for college, it's going to have another way of coaching it. We're all trying to get the same thing. And the more athletic you are, the easier it is to make those changes.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting to me always about this conversation. And I think back to myself like 10 years ago when all of this athletic training started coming online. And I remember I was actually training a kid in basketball at the local rec center. And there was some kids with a guy who was teaching like running technique to like 7-year-olds. I remember thinking in my head going, who's paying for this? Like, why would anybody go and do this athletic training? And then I started thinking about like the way that, at least for me, the way I became a better athlete was like running through my neighborhood and climbing trees. And how did I learn to throw? Like I learned to throw by trying to hit my neighbor with apples as he was hiding behind some fort somewhere, and jumping out of, running off my neighbor's garage roof and seeing how far I could jump and doing stupid things and all this stuff that, like, again, kids today, they don't necessarily have those things. And like I talked about with Annie a little bit, right? It's so hard now to be a dual sport athlete because at such a young age, kids are, I don't want to say forced is maybe the wrong way to do it, but at a certain point, you kind of have to make a choice because so many kids are doing things year round, especially in a sport, again, like basketball or a technique-based sport like track and field. If you're not practicing those techniques all the time, and then there are kids who are, you're obviously going to fall behind. And it's just such a challenge because, again, as you said, Michael, I think the benefits of being able to play multiple sports to you as an athlete, but also just, again, as a person in terms of your role on different teams. And obviously track and field as a more individual sport compared to basketball, the way you fit in and do those different things impacts you not just as an athlete, but also as a human being. And so, Krista, I know both of you have mentioned, and clearly I could see it in our conversation with Annie, right? That you mentioned how charismatic she was. You mentioned how comfortable she is speaking. I mean, there's not many high school kids that can come on and be able to have a conversation with an adult and speak and do the things that she just did for 25 minutes. So how does that impact, Krista, on the basketball court? You, as I asked her, you're bringing a bunch of kids together who maybe 3 months didn't even know each other, and now you're trying to put together this team. So talk about what having somebody with Annie's personality and that ability to be outgoing, and I'm assuming connect people, what's that like having her a part of the team, aside from whatever her basketball contribution is, just her contribution to your team as a human being?
Absolutely. I think Annie is so special in that way. When she speaks, people listen. She is the vice president of the student council. She was the very first Spire Athlete of the Month. All of these things are not by accident. She is the type of person who is kind, genuinely cares about people and their experiences and the way that she interacts with the other student athletes at Spire. That's very evident that she just is a genuine, kind person, and you pick up on that. And so I think her contribution that way, she's a natural born leader, and she sees the world through a different lens. She knows exactly what she's trying to do. She is comfortable with where she's at. What she does couldn't happen if she's not who she is, because she's again, one of the most mature high school seniors I've ever dealt with. And I think, again, that's because she's spent her time getting life experiences. And the way that she handles herself every day is what makes her ability to do this possible, because she rolls with the diversity. Like, obviously she's torn her ACL. She's just roll with the diversity. It's tough walking into what we do, where we have the ability to recruit highly talented athletes. And that's a challenge in itself. And she couldn't be here doing what she's doing if she didn't have the hard work, the dedication, and just the grit to get the job done every day. She hasn't come into practice and had one bad practice in the 2 months that we've been here. She always comes with a great attitude, one of the hardest working, and just like that lends itself to the kind of team that we can build, the kind of culture we can have with someone like that who's showing up every day saying, I'm here, I'm ready to go. Who's coming with me?
Yeah, and I think that's, Michael, kind of what you were getting at, right? Is that when you have somebody who's on your team like that, that sets the tone, and again, forget about their basketball or their skill on the track. You're talking about just from a human being standpoint, just bringing that enthusiasm and being a model, not just of athleticism, but a model of, hey, this is what a great teammate looks like. This is what being prepared every day. So that's kind of what you're seeing as well, Michael, kind of what Krista just described, if I'm not correct.
Absolutely. Every day, she's locked in every day that I work with her. She works with another one of our coaches, Coach Powell, specifically in that hammer and weight category. And a lot of this stuff is new, right? Like, she's done shots, she's done discs, she's done jab very, very well. But to do that and then on top of it, add new events, the weight and the hammer that you don't typically see in high schools, unless you're in Rhode Island. You don't typically see that, and it's different. You're spinning the wrong way, right? You're spinning different than you do with shot and disc, and it's way heavier. But she just picks up things super quickly. She's there, ready to learn, ready to listen, and it immediately translates to success in the technical aspects of the events. So yeah, when Krista said that she's like one of the most mature high schoolers she's ever worked with, coming from a collegiate background, she's one of the most mature athletes I've ever worked with. I mean, whether they're a 23-year-old grad student on their second COVID year or what, like, way she was able to like lock in and take direction and then apply it immediately, like that neuroplasticity that she has to just hear what she needs to do, see it on a video, and then execute it within 3 minutes is incredible.
All right, I'm not about to compare Annie to LeBron James, but I'm about to compare Annie to LeBron James in this way. That when I think about LeBron, and this is a conversation I've had with lots of different people, that when you think about him as a 18 or 19-year-old coming into the NBA, and obviously Annie's situation, she's not facing the kind of media scrutiny and press conferences and all the things that LeBron had to do. But there really wasn't, like, LeBron is who he is because he just, that ability to be able to speak to the media, to be able to talk articulately about what was going on in his life, what was going on during games, and to be that polished and that present is something that now people may have talked to him about it, but that's not something that you can teach to somebody. You either have that ability to do that and you can hone it and you can make it better, but I don't think anybody took LeBron from somebody that couldn't speak in front of a microphone to suddenly somebody who looked as polished as he did. And I get a sense that Annie's probably the same way, that we could probably wake her up out of bed in the morning and throw a camera in front of her and she'd be able to talk and explain very articulately what she wants to do. And so it's just interesting when you have, as you guys have both described, an athlete, a person, especially at such a young age, that is able to talk with adults in that way and also be able to relate to their peers the way that you guys are describing. That's something that's very special. I don't know if you guys have talked to her at all about just sort of where that ability has come from in terms of almost like a metacognition with her. To, like, does she realize that the things that she's doing in that realm is unique, or is it just she's kind of still like, hey, it's just I'm me and this is just what I do? So Krista, I'll let you take that first, and then Michael, you can feel free to hop in.
Sure. She came with a plan, and I think that's one of the reasons that she can articulate so well how she's gotten here and where she's going. She, I think, quite humbly and quickly passed over that subject, but she came with a plan when I sat down with every single person on the team and said, okay, like, where do you think you can play right now? And where are you trying to go? Right. If you have, your dream. And she, very quickly and very astutely listed where she thinks she can play and what she's trying to do. And so I think it's I think it comes naturally to her because she's a planner. And you would have to be to do what she's doing. I guess specifically, make no exceptions for her. She's doing this on her own. So she has to do everything that everybody else is doing. And on top of that, she's doing track 2 days a week. And she only has a study hall because she's taking an online calc course outside of Spire to ensure that she can graduate. So she's taking on everything and more. Our schedule is rigorous. We're like 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. like almost every day of the week. On top of that, she's doing individual workouts on the basketball side. On top of that, all of our kids have to make 250 shots a day. And then on top of that, she's going to track practice. So again, you don't have the ability to do all that if you don't know exactly what you're trying to do.
Michael?
Yeah, it's the professionalism that comes with the teams, right? You can have all the measurables, and the things that are going to set you apart really at Spire is how well you're able to maintain that level of composure, that level of focus and drive for a long season. Basketball is a long season. Track is a long season, and they overlap. She will be in competition. Your first competition was a few weeks ago for basketball. She'll be in competition through the end of May. So, and that's every week. She's going to be competing at a high level at multiple different things, right? She's playing basketball, which is always changing, play to play. And then she's going to track meets where she has to switch and sometimes be doing multiple events at the same time, right? Javelin's going on, shot put's going on at the same time. She's in finals for shot. She's going to have to move to jab. She's going to have to move to hammer, right? The ability to switch and like know where I'm going, what that plan is on a day-to-day basis has really built out into her life. She knows what she's doing every day. She sets that schedule. We can try our best. We set our practice times. We tell them, hey, you got to go fuel and do this and try to get, minimum 7.5 hours of sleep. And you got to get your work done and you got to do all that. And here, watch these videos. Right? We can say all that. It takes the athlete to do it. Right? I say to all my athletes, I haven't told them this yet because we haven't gotten to a competition, but all of their results are their own. All of their successes are because of them. And if we hit a roadblock, I need to look at that. I need to look at what I've done so I can make sure that you're doing the best that you can. Because I just assume that they're doing everything that they should be doing. And for her, I'm right. Every single day, I know she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. And I see that every time she practices. I'm excited to see her compete because I'm sure it's going to be the same thing.
All right. So when I asked Annie the question about where she thought she was going to go or what her goals were, she said that she wanted to be able to continue to play both sports as long as possible and continue to be able to have fun with both of them. So I'm not going to ask you to reveal her secrets, but just tell me a little bit about each of your roles in, I'm assuming that her recruitment, her college decision-making process, she's starting to think about what she's going to do next year. So just without revealing, again, details that you don't need to reveal, just talk to me a little bit about your role in her recruiting and her college decision-making process. So Krista, I'll let you go first, and then Michael, you can jump in after.
Sure. Yeah. So her, I think, goal, and, we've talked at length about track versus basketball versus both, because at the end of the day, she wants what she wants, but whether or not both are possible will remain to be seen. And I think she's very clear on that. Our goal on the basketball side is to ensure she has the tools and has done the work to do her best to secure that opportunity. So her, continuing to practice every day and to continue to work on her skills is really what's going to afford her that opportunity. at the end of the day, if it's just track, it's just track. If it's just basketball, it's just basketball. And again, not a conversation that I had to have with her because she brought that to me. She said, I like both. I'm not, I'm maybe more talented at track than I am at basketball. She said, but I'm not willing to give up basketball. I said, okay. So we've got, 8 months to put the work in to see if we can make this happen for you. And at the end of the day, she'll be happy with kind of whatever comes. But she's a competitor, so she wants both. So we'll do our best to try and get her both. So, we on the basketball side are already doing all of the things because, I design our schedule to be immersive. We're getting the competition. We're getting the exposure in front of college coaches. So that's already built in. So she just has to, bring herself to the table and give herself that opportunity.
Michael?
Absolutely. I will say, like, from the track side, from what I've seen, that there's definitely there's a shift happening at the NCAA level where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we saw a lot of dual sport athletes. And then we saw a big shift to, nope, everybody's doing one thing, working with coaches. They were like, nope, football's football. We're football all year round. And, you can look at athletes like Tiger Woods or Stephen Holm. He's a high jumper. They only did that forever. But you look at so many athletes now, like all of the really elite athletes talk about how good they were at other events. They specialized when they had to be professionals. And you look at University of Miami football team when they won the Rose Bowl. I forget when that was, 2003 or something. They had 6 athletes on the track and field team. Right? They absolutely dominated. Oregon, Devin Allen was an All-American football player and then an All-American hurdler, and now he's an Olympian. And he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. Right? I don't think playing those sports took away, obviously, from their ability to have success. It's just finding those coaches that are willing to be flexible in their schedule. And Krista does a great job with that. I've been lucky to be able to do that for the past 10 years. And it's really not a training problem. It's a scheduling problem. Everything she's doing on the basketball court is helping me out. And I try to have everything that she's doing in specifically the weight room, and the mental side of, throwing, where you have to reset literally every time. You get 6 throws and you're done. Like, you're done in an hour. And most of the time you're sitting around waiting, thinking about all the things you messed up in your previous throw. So taking that, goldfish mentality of I did poorly on this, I know what I have to do, I'm going to do it again, to the court, that's awesome. For me, she's doing plyometrics every single day, running up and down the court. She's in a ridiculous fitness shape for a thrower. We like to think of throwers as just kind of, housing meals and throwing up tons of weight in the weight room. And to a certain extent, that's true. But you see Ryan Krauser, world record holder in the shot put, he is at over 3 meter broad jump, right? His plyometric measurables and his athletic measurables are humongous. They're off the charts. And that's, what she's working on in the weight room. That's what she's working on when she's in the circles with me. That's what she's working on in the court. So it's not a training issue. There's definitely some scheduling that has to be done, but that's our problem. That's a coach's problem. That's not an athlete problem. So I think now we're seeing a lot more coaches, ironically more so at the Division I level, just because of the access to resources, be more open to that division, that dual sport type thing. Now, I'm not going to have a softball player and a track and field athlete at the same time. It happens. They're in the same season. So that's really difficult to do. but a soccer player, a basketball player, a fall sport to a winter and spring sport happens all the time. And like I can just reiterate, if she wants to do that, we're going to make that happen for her. And for track, it's a little bit harder for coaches to come out and see, but they will especially at all of our indoor events, right? They're going to be there, and you just have to look at it. You're like, okay, that girl is crushing it, and she's doing well. She has whatever in O season this year. These are her, metrics on the basketball court. She's been doing this. The change isn't for her. The change is for me. How am I going to be a better coach? That's the mentality that they have to have. I think there's a lot of coaches at the collegiate level at this point that are really kind of embracing that. So for us, it's just finding those opportunities for her and advocating on her behalf, because she can explain it super well. But when they ask us questions, it's like, yeah, she's been doing it. This is nothing new for her. You got to figure it out.
What you see is what you get, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when you start talking about, again, all the measurable things and the athletic performance that you can see, whether it's on the basketball court or on the track side of it, yeah, that all counts for something. But then I would assume, just the way that I came away from my 25-minute conversation, and each of you have come away from your now many interactions with her, the measurables are one thing. And then when you put the personality and the person behind those measurables, now you really have something. How much have you guys talked with her family in terms of kind of what they wanted to accomplish with her and what she wants to accomplish? What were those conversations like? What are they like with the family? And Krista, I'll let you go first.
Man, Annie's driving this boat. So what Annie wants, I think Annie gets. And that's, I think, again, the reason that she has the ability to do what she can do. I mean, I've spoken with her parents. We talked after the first game. They were lovely. They were supportive. And that's exactly what I would love for all parents to be. She's the master of her own destiny, and she's, her maturity has given her the ability to do the heavy lifting in that regard. And, her parents have the opportunity to be supportive. I was very clear with our whole parent group about, the expectations that I lay out for our student athletes. And I don't ever leave them guessing about, what expectations are for them. And I do that for a reason. So there's no questions. They can't say, oh, I didn't know. Yes, you did. And, her parents were just extremely supportive, on board. She's taking a couple of our student athletes who are, here over Thanksgiving. She's taking them to her home. That's just the kind of kid she is.
Michael?
Yeah. I haven't had the privilege of meeting her parents yet. I'm excited I can't wait for our competitions to start, but that's just me being selfish. And so she's gonna, I'm sure her parents are coming out. I know she's excited to have them see her compete in the throws, especially the new throws. Weight and hammer, like, sets you apart as a high school athlete, getting exposure to them. They're super technical, and she really does drive the boat. When I came in and I asked her, I said, hey, I've looked up your marks. You're a solid athlete across the board. You've got more of a background in jab. What do you want to do? You can't throw jab indoors. We're going to train it. You can't throw it indoors. She's like, well, I just want to do everything. I was like, have you ever thought about doing weight? Have you ever thought about doing hammer? She's like, it's an event. I'll do it. And that's really where it came down to. It's like, okay, we're doing everything. We're not shying away from this. She's already doing so much. This is not a extra thing on her plate. She knows how to handle it. And like she said, she really, really drives, what she wants to do, and she's in control of that. So I'm excited to kind of show that off. She gets to put on a show for her parents when she gets to see the competition. We can send them all the practice videos, but even though I'm hyped behind the camera, they don't know what that means. They've never seen a hammer, get thrown. So I'm just excited for that. And I think her parents, a testament to them, coaching her in the throws growing up, and then, really giving her free rein to do what she wants has really made her the athlete. And the privilege to coach her has been awesome. So, yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, I want to give each of you a chance either to, if you have any final thoughts that you haven't shared about Annie or about anything related to her story, you can do that. And also, if you wouldn't mind just sharing how people can reach out to you and find out more about each of your respective programs at Spire. And then after each of you do that, I will jump back in and wrap things up. So Krista, we'll go to you first and then Michael second.
Yeah, Annie's just a privilege to have. Kids like that, this generation's, I think, built a little different. But I would exclude her from that group because of just the way that she is. By far, one of my favorite kids I've coached. And on the basketball side, fact check me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think it's less than 2% of female high school basketball players play basketball at the next level. And I tell them that every single day because they need to hear it, because I think they have to have realistic expectations. And she does, more than probably anyone else. I had so many kids last year who came and said, my dream school is UConn. And I said, okay, our dreams need to be attainable. We can't all play at UConn. And so, just to have a young woman like that whose head is so securely on her shoulders is a privilege. An absolute privilege.
Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. Her drive, her focus, her determination to be successful, while also keeping a positive attitude, right? I've worked with a lot of athletes who have that drive, have that passion. They don't have a lot of friends, right? They're very successful, but they're intense and can be a little abrasive. She's not like that. She's got all the drive, she's got all the passion, she's got the plan that she's executing, and she's doing it with a smile on her face. She's doing it while making friends, while really taking a leadership role without even being asked, without even probably knowing how much she's taking a leadership role. Right? I've got my four throwers, and I work with the sprinters and hurdlers, and jumpers as well. So I'm split in a couple different directions, and it's very easy for me to say, all right, I'm coaching with Kellen or Nico today, and working on them on this. Annie and LaRouche, you guys are working on this, and then they work and bounce off each other. And she really drives the boat with that, which is great to see. It makes my job easier. It makes my job a pleasure to do. So I'm super excited for that. In terms of the realistic aspects of it, she knows what she wants, and that makes it very easy for her to have those real conversations with coaches as she's getting recruited. You don't have to, waver to somebody at the collegiate level just because they're recruiting you. They're recruiting you for who you are. What she is she's an amazing athlete, both as a basketball player and as a track athlete. So I think that's going to take her to wherever she wants to go, right? UConn's probably done recruiting. They probably got her class also. But, she's been realistic. The places that we've talked about, throughout the country, and the places that she wants to be a dual sport athlete for, or have at least negotiations about that. She knows what she wants. She could sit down in an interview like it's a job interview and be totally prepared, hit that elevator pitch, tight 15, and everybody's gonna want to bring her on. So that's the coolest thing for me as a coach to see. And so I know by the end of this year, she's going to be at a spot where she wants to be. She's going to be ready for success at that next level.
Krista and Michael, I want to just say thanks to the two of you for taking the time out of your schedule to come on and join us tonight. And I want to also thank you for the opportunity to talk with Annie. Again, obviously from listening to the two of you talk and having an opportunity to talk to her directly tonight, you can see what a special person and special athlete that she is, and the impact that she's had on the two of you. Just like I told her when she was talking, that, you know, I could sense her enthusiasm and passion for her sports, and talking to the two of you, I can sense your enthusiasm and passion for her as coaches. And again, when I think about what we do as coaches, right, the opportunity to be able to have a special athlete, a special young person like that you get an opportunity to interact with, and you get an opportunity to impact them, but then also conversely, they get an opportunity to impact you. And I think that's really, when you start talking about the coaching profession, that's really what it's all about. So again, thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing Annie with us. Truly appreciate that. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.